I'm pretty sure we are aware of who Plato is or has come across his name once in our lifetime. Plato's most important work is The Republic, which details a wise society run by a philosopher. He is also famous for his dialogues on early, middle, and late, which showcases his metaphysical theory of forms, something else is well known for. Plato is considered the preeminent Greek philosopher, known for his dialogues and for founding his academy north of Athens, traditionally considered the first university in the Western world. Today, our team will dive deeper into our table of contents below. 1. What is Plato's philosophy and its importance? 2. Plato's theory of forms and what it tells us. 3. What did he say in the Allegory of the Cave and what does it mean? 4. Why are we in the cave and how do we get out? 5. What does the myth of ER teach us? And 6. Plato's influence on society today.
Hi everyone, my name is Xiaoyi. Today I'm gonna present about the Plato's philosophy and why it is so important. Plato was a great philosopher in ancient Greece and one of the greatest philosophers and thinkers in the entire Western culture. Plato, his teacher Socrates, and his student Aristotle were also called the three Greeks. The concepts he created or developed include Platonic thought, Platonism, Platonic love. Plato lived in an era when the Athenian aristocracy lost power and the democracies were in power. He advocated aristocratic politics and opposite democratic system. In philosophy, he inherited Socrates' idealism and became the ancestor of Western objective idealism philosophy. He regards the principles of the leash of the universe and the primary, internal, and universal. As for the word of scenery context, it is a copy or phantom of the leash word without entity and universality. So it is not only secondary but also untrue. Plato's philosophical system also talked about the theory of love. He emphasizes treating love as the satisfaction of interests and erotic desires and believes the love is the love that arises after the body of beauty is glimpsed from the beauty of the world. And people reach internal beauty through this kind of love, although this kind of thinking has the meaning of vulgar love. It is essentially the view of the spiritual aristocracy and a part of his idealistic system. The later Platonian spiritual love is derived from his love theory. The core concept of Plato's philosophy is idea, and his philosophy is therefore called ideology. In addition, Plato also exerted the inspiration of Greek tradition. He believes that the source of creation in inspiration and poets must have the support of gods and turn into a fanatic state to create great works. This is also the expression of objective idealism in creative theory. In the 3rd century AD, Plato's philosophical thought developed from Plato to Neoplatonism. This Neoplatonism was combined with Christian theology in the Middle Ages and ruled in philosophy and aesthetics for more than 1,000 years. The ideas of Plato and Neoplatonism also had a great influence in the later Renaissance. Enlightenment and Romanticism. Plato believed that for any kind of philosophy to be universal, it must include a theory about nature and the universe. Plato tried to grasp the truths about the individual and nature, so he developed a nature philosophy susceptible for and subordinate to his political and theological opinions. Plato said that tangible things in nature are fluid, but the forms or ideas that make up these tangible substances are untold. Plato pointed out that when we speak of horses, we are not referring to any horses, but any kinds of horse. Plato believes that it is impossible for us to have a real understanding of those changing and flowing things. We only have opinions or about them. What we can really understand is only those forms or ideas that we can use our intellect to understand. Therefore, Plato believes that knowledge is fixed and positive, and there can be no wrong knowledge. Physical philosophical criticism. Starting from the ever-changing material world, wise men believe that only human perception can directly contact objective things immediately, and that perception is always real. That put forward the famous proposition that knowledge is perception, because perception varies from person to person. Protagoras put forward the more famous proposition that people are the measure of all things. Regarding the proposition, knowledge is perception. Plato pointed out that perception is unreliable in many situations. For example, it is also dreaming and sickness. Others, especially about manners and about people who cause misunderstandings, misconceptions, and all kinds of delusions. The wooden strip in the water looked curved, which is an illusion. Plato violently criticized this tendency of agnosticism and pointed out everything is in flux, saying that seeing is the same as saying no. And saying no, saying that there is a certain perception is the same as saying that there is no one. Ted, the wisdom teacher, on page 75. In Plato's view, if the theory of the wise man is carried through to the end, it is impossible for people to obtain any definite knowledge. Philosophical duality. Idealism is core of Plato's philosophy. What is the relationship between the ideal world and the real world? This is the most important question that Plato has explored throughout his life. In this regard, Plato also has made different and even diametrically opposite discussion. In Utopia, he regards the unchanging ideas as the true original and the changed things as the imitations and negative products of the idea. What is the essence of the soul? What is the relationship between it and the body? Plato's discussion is also dualistic. Philosophical dialectics. In Plato's dialogue, discussion on many issues such as beauty, knowledge, and virtues are carried out from the individual to the general approach, reflecting the close integration of dialectics and epistemology. Plato's theory of ideas completed the critique of the philosophy of the wise and re-established the authority of thought in the philosophical function. As Haugen said, the greatness of Plato's doctrine lies in the belief that the content can only be filled with thought, because thought is universal. Universal things can only be produced by thought or grasped by thought, and it can only exist through the activity of thinking. Plato defines this universal content as an idea, but Plato's philosophy, the scientific construction has not been completed. The difficulty lies in the relationship between ideas and concrete things. This relationship has always been a problem that puzzles Plato's philosophy. Despite Plato's hard work, he failed to enter the truth.
I'm Sophie, and I'll be explaining Plato's theory of form and what does it tell us. The allegory of cave is fundamental to Plato's explanation of how form operates in human perception and behavior. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato did a lot to change the way we think about the world, in everything from mathematics to ethics to logic. But perhaps one of his most influential contributions to philosophy was the theory of form. In basic terms, Plato's theory of form asserts that the physical world is not really the real world. Instead, ultimate reality exists beyond our physical world. Plato discussed this theory in a few different dialogues, including the most famous one, called the Republic. It is also likely that Plato inherited some of this theory from his mentor Socrates. Platos philosophy asserts that there are two realms, the physical realm and spiritual realm. The physical realm is the material stuff we see and interact with only on a daily basis. This physical realm is changing and imperfect. The spiritual realm, however, exists beyond the physical realm. Plato called this spiritual realm the realm of form, also called the realm of idea or realm of ideals. Plato's theory of form asserts that the physical realm is only a shadow or image of the true reality of the realm of form. Plato says such form exists in an abstract state, but independent of mind in their own realm. Considering this idea of a perfect triangle, we might also be tempted to take pencils and pen and draw it. Our attempt will of course fall short. The idea or form of a triangle and the drawing we come up with is a way of comparing the perfect and imperfect. Although no one has ever seen a perfect triangle, for Plato this is not a problem. If we can conceive the idea or form of a perfect triangle in our mind, then the idea of a triangle must exist. The forms are not limited to geometry. According to Plato, for any conceivable things or property, there is a corresponding form. The list is almost inexhaustible. Trees, house, mountain, man, woman, ship, cloud, house, dog, table, and chair would all be an example of putatively independent existing abstract perfect idea. Plato says that true and reliable knowledge rests only with those who can comprehend the true reality behind the world of everyday experience. In order to perceive the world of the form, individuals must undergo a difficult education. This is also true of Plato's philosopher king, who also require to perceive the form of God in order to be well-informed ruler. We must be taught to recall the knowledge of form, since it is already present in a person's mind, due to their soul apparently having been in the world of form before they were born. Not everyone is sure to be king in the same way as not everyone is sure to mathematics. Conversely, a high standard in particular traits suggests knowledge of its form. The majority of people cannot be educated about the nature of the form because the form cannot be discovered through education, only recall. To explain our relationship to the world of the form, in the Republic, Plato used the analogy of people who spend their whole life living in a cave. All they ever see are shadows on the walls, created by their campfire. Compared with the reality of the world, of the form, real physical objects and events are analog to being only shadow. Plato also takes the opportunity to use the cave analogy as a political statement. Only the people who have the ability to step out into the sunlight and see their true reality should rule. Clearly, Plato was not a fan of Greek democracy. The forms are abstract, perfect, and changing concepts or ideals that transcend time and space. They exist in the realm of form. Even though the forms are abstract, that doesn't mean that they are real. In fact, the forms are more real than any individual physical object. So concepts like redness, roundness, beauty, justice, or goodness are forms. Individual objects like a red book, round ball, a beautiful girl, a just action, or a good person reside in the physical realm and are simply different examples of the form. Hi, I'm Sophie and I'll be explaining. Hello, Professor. I am Mary, and I will be going over what he said in the Allegory of the Cave and what it means. In the Allegory, Plato likens people untutored in the theory of forms to prisoners chained in the cave, unable to turn their heads. All they can see is the wall of the cave. Behind them burns a fire. Between the fire and the prisoners, there is a parapet. along which puppeteers can walk. The puppeteers who are behind the prisoners hold up the puppets that cast shadows on the wall of the cave. The prisoners are unable to see these puppets, the real objects that pass behind them. What the prisoners can see and hear are shadows and echoes that are casted by objects that they do not see. Plato realizes that the general run of humankind can think and speak without any awareness of his realms of form. Such prisoners would mistaken the appearance for reality. They would think that things they see on the wall were real. They would know nothing of the real causes of the shadows, though. So when the prisoners talk, what are they talking about? If an object is carried past behind them and it casts a shadow on the wall, and a prisoner says, I see a book, what is he talking about? He thinks that he is seeing a book, but he is really talking about a shadow. But he uses the word book, and what does it really refer to? Plato gives his answer at line 515b2. The text here has puzzled many editors, and it has been frequently amended. The translation in Group or Reeve gets the point correctly, quoting that if they could talk to one another, don't you think they suppose that the names they use apply to the things they see passing before them? Plato's point is that the prisoners would be mistaken, for they would be taking the terms in their language to refer to the shadows that pass before their eyes, rather than, as is correct in Plato's view, to the real things that cast the shadows. If a prisoner says, that's a book, he thinks that the word book refers to the very thing he is looking at, but he will be wrong. He's only looking at the shadow. The real referent of the word book he cannot see. To see it, he would have to turn his head around. Plato's point is the general terms of our language are not names of physical objects that we can see. They are actually names of things that we cannot see, things that we can only grasp in the mind. When the prisoners were released, they can turn their heads to see the real object. Then they start to realize that there is an error. What can we do that is analogous to turning our heads and seeing the causes of the shadows? We can come to grasp forms in our minds. Plato's aim in the Republic is to describe what is necessary for us to achieve with reflective understanding. But even without it, it remains true that our variability to think and to speak depends on the forms. For the terms of the language we use get their meaning by naming the forms that the object we perceive participate in. The prisoners may learn that what a book is by their experience with shadows of the book, but they will be mistaken if they thought the word book refers to something that any of them have ever seen. Likewise, we may acquire concepts by our perceptual experience of physical objects, but we will mistaken it if we thought that the concepts we grasp were on the same level as what we perceive. Who are these people in the allegory? That's us. It is an allegory of us in a cave. In a part of the book, you could see that there was a guy who was set free or who has escaped and has seen what the outside world was. When he returned, he was not believed and was eventually viewed as dangerous by people who were in the cave and has not come out. Plato was clearly referencing Socrates right here. He did not really tell us who these people were, but we can definitely tell that these people who were under the cave and had felt threatened by an individual who had thought and acted differently to be those in a position of extraordinary power, because whatever they hold up determines the opinions and beliefs and attitudes of everyone else. In society, we can connect them to opinion makers, like the government by making laws, teachers and mentors, parents who brainwash their children into believing what is good to share, religious leaders who shape the beliefs of their followers, and the media who holds massive force in shaping people's opinions in the modern world. These people are ignorant and cannot stand reality. Plato calls the cave a physical world of conventional opinions, where people are passive observers, and going out of the cave to be a world of ideas.
I'm Mai, and I'm going to be talking about why are we in the cave and how can we get out. In the allegory, Socrates described a group of people who have lived chained to the wall of a cave all their lives. The people watch shadows projected on the wall from objects passing in front of or far behind them and proceed to give names to these shadows. The shadows are the prisoners' reality, but are not an accurate representation of the real world. The allegory of the story links to our reality in ways that we're not familiar with. We are in the cave because of the comfort and information that we're used to. Much like the prisoner, we only knew one side of what we believe is true. We stick to our side of reality while calling others delusional for not seeing something, for seeing something that we thought never existed. Socrates explained how the philosopher is like a prisoner who is freed from the cave and comes to understand that the shadows on the wall are not reality at all. A philosopher aimed to understand and perceive the higher levels of reality. However, the other inmates of the cave do not even desire to leave their prison, for they know no better life. The allegory contains many forms of symbolism used to instruct the reader in the nature of perception. The cave represents superficial physical reality. It also represents ignorance, as those in the cave live accepting what they see at face value. Ignorance is further represented by the darkness that engulfs them because they cannot know the true object that forms shadow, leading them to believe that the shadows are the true form of the objects. The chain that prevents the prisoner from leaving the cave represents that they are trapped in ignorance, as the chain are stopping them from learning the truth. The shadow cast on the wall of the cave represents the superficial truth, which is the illusion that the prisoners see in the cave. The freed prisoner represent those who understand that the physical world is only a shadow of the truth, and the sun that is glaring the eyes of the prisoner represent the higher truth of ideas. The light further represents wisdom, as even in the paltry light that makes it into the cave allow the prisoner to know the shapes. We are all living in a cave. We have a mindset of always being safe. We ignore other new lessons, experiences, and others as truth. Those ego and ignorance are the modern cave that we are confined to. Our cave is our refusal to accept new information and try to see others' point of view. And how we could get out was to explore the other side of things, the perspective and the information that we're given. Believing blindly without knowledge of what is being said could also regard you as the prisoner who had conformed to habits of what they knew of life. Their mindset are closed off and not very broad, which leaves them to ignore what could be better for them. We are all in the cave because limitation that we have set. In other words, we have biases, barriers, and our own opinion. When we get lost in our own ego and opinion, that also means that you're stuck in a cave, refusing to see other side while believing lies that others created for you. This is the modern cave that we all have. We can get out by opening our minds with new ideas and information, never believing the truth from someone else's perspective, but seeking your own. A great mind finds the truth in every word, but tries to prove themselves right, if they are worthy of trust or not. This is how you can get out of the cave, by having a flexibility of the mind and being open to new information. My name is Mai and going to
Hello, Professor. My name is Vanita Viseth, and I will be talking about what does the myth of Earth teaches us. Although called the myth of Earth, the word myth means word, speech, or account. The myth of Earth is a tale in Greek mythology about a man who died on a battlefield and returned to life 9 days later, recounting what happened in the afterlife. The word myth was used in the ancient Greek sense meaning account rather than the present-day meaning. Was the man who died during a battle, and along with the soul of the other combatants, he was led to a magnificent place that had 4 doors, 2 into and out of the sky, and 2 into and out of the earth. There were judges who decided which path each soul should follow, depending on the life they led on earth. The good ones were told to go to the sky, while the bad ones were led into the earth. From the sky exit, souls that appeared clean came out, telling of a place that filled them with incredible feelings. The souls that emerged from the earth exit were dirty and were talking about the misery and the difficulties they faced for punishment of what they had done while alive. Some souls, however, those of murderers and other criminals, were not allowed to exit the earth and remained trapped forever. Was told that he would not be judged and that he should remain there. in order to see the whole procedure and report it back to mankind. 7 days later, they were all led to another place where there was the spindle of necessity. Necessity, or Anarchy, was a primordial goddess and a personification of faith. There, the souls were given a lottery number, and based on that, each of them was told to ask what their next life should be. The first soul, having traveled through the sky in the previous era, decided to become a dictator. When that happened, though, he didn't realize that he was destined to eat his own children because of his actions. Realized that the souls that had traveled through the sky and had not lived the punishment of the other path often chose bad things for their next life, while the opposite happened for the souls that had been punished. Once the soul chose their next life, they were led under the throne of necessity to the river Lethe, forgetfulness, where they were told to drink in order to forget their previous life. That night, when each soul fell asleep, they were sent to new bodies to lead their new lives. Earth's soul did not go through all of this and did not drink from the river Lethe, thus remembering everything he had experienced. When he woke up, he returned to his old body, which had not been decomposed during that period, but he found himself on the funeral pyre that his fellow soldier had started. They saved him from the flame, and he managed to recount his experience in the afterlife. The myth was used by Socrates to show that the choices people make have an impact on the afterlife, and that those who pretend to be religious but are false in their soul will eventually be punished in the next life. The myth of Earth from Plato's Republic tells the story of a soldier who is thought to be dead and descends to the underworld. But when he revives, he is sent back to tell humanity what awaits them in the afterlife. Earth described an afterlife where the just are rewarded and the wicked are punished. Souls are then reborn into new bodies and a new life, and the new life they choose will reflect how they have lived in their previous life and the state of their soul at death. Plato ends the Republic with the myth of Earth to discuss points about the immortality of the soul, free will and determinism, individual responsibility, and the role of virtue in obtaining a happy life. For Plato, even after death, justice is rewarded and injustice is punished. It is very essential to put emphasis on the fact that each soul is granted the life it chooses before reincarnation. Plato held and argued the idea that men could choose to be evil or to be good, not holding any doctrine of predestination, meaning evil men choose to be evil. Plato's emphasizes on choice regardless of habitation and conditioning clearly that people are responsible for their lives. In other words, men are highly susceptible to conditioning, yet through philosophical rigor, one may take full moral responsibility for the life one leads. Thank you.
Hello, Professor. My name is Vidya, and I'll be talking about Plato's influence on society. Plato established the first university in Europe, the Academia or Academy. Academy was established outside the city limits of old Athens and offered a wide range of subjects taught by experts in the field. The Academy was thought to be principal college in Europe and attracted scholars such as Eudoxus, Alcinous, and Theaetetus, both mathematicians, and Aristotle, the philosopher. Insight into the philosophical teachings of Socrates. Socrates is credited as being one of the fathers of Western philosophy. Even though Socrates was highly regarded in his time, he didn't record any of his lessons, and his ideas are known only through the writings of his contemporaries such as Antisthenes and Aristippus, or his students such as Xenophon and Plato. The theory of forms. The idea of structure is key to Plato's philosophy and may be directly linked to the teachings of Socrates. The idea is that non-physical forms or ideas are the most accurate reality, and the marvels of the physical world are imperfect reverberation of the ideal perfect model that exists outside of reality. epistemology or theory of knowledge. Plato believed that genuine knowledge could be gained from wider universe. For example, in his Socratic exchange Meno, Plato explains how child can discover mathematical theories without prior knowledge of the world, reaching logical conclusion by asking questions and considering alternative responses. Plato claimed that this was possible due to the memory of past lives or through learning by examination instead of perception. He suggested that knowledge is instinctively present in an individual's spirit and has been concealed by their views and experience of the real world. Division of labor. Plato recognized that the need of humans to work together in society for mutual benefit, profit. He believed that everyone had different skill and attributes, and these could be combined to meet the needs of the whole of society. Those who were driven to produce such things, such as farmers, tradesmen, and craftsmen, these people were said to embody the hunger element of the spirit. Those who acted as guardians and were concerned with protection and the soul element of the spirit, these were said to be courageous, trustworthy, and daring, such as military leaders. Those who were concerned with the reason element of the spirit, rulers or scholars who were smart, discerning, self-control, pursued intelligence, and equity. This was considered to be the smallest of the three groups. Politics. Following on the division of labor and three main types of people in the society, Plato was able to establish a political and economic model which worked for the benefit of all. In his society, people could work together for mutual gain, which would in return lead to prosperous and thriving political economic structure. Mathematics. Plato played a vital role in encouraging the Greek intelligentsia to regard science as his theory. His academy taught arithmetic as part of philosophy by Pythagoras had done, and the first 10 years of course at academy included the study of geometry, astronomy, and music. Plato has been described as the producer of mathematicians, and his academy boasted some of the most conspicuous mathematicians of the ancient world, such as Eidosus, Theaetetus, and Archytas.